And yesterday we put the bag around the engine just to keep the dirt out of there, any rain that might have fell overnight. S&B piston heads 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. For those who are wondering which cylinder head is which, the cylinder that is closest to the front of the engine will be your number 1, which is going to be this side. This side is to be number 1. And on most engines, they have all their odd cylinders on one side. So this is going to be 1, 3, 5. And on the opposite side, it's going to be 2, 4, 6. Some engines will have 1, 2, 3. And then 4, 5, 6. If you're not sure, you can always Google that information online. You don't want to put the piston heads in the wrong spot. So if we look at the crankshaft, you see 1 and 2 aren't exactly lined up. It's offset. So the first one is just ahead of the second one. So we look down here, this cylinder also lines up for the first one. So when you're putting the engine back together, that's also another telltale sign of which cylinder is which. So we'll be starting with the first one, and then the second, and then work our way back. So the way this piston ring compressor works is we set the rings according to the direction. We set this compressor over the top of it. And then this little hole on this side, we use the tool and then we twist it. And when we twist it, the compressor is going to tighten up and it's going to hold the rings around the head as we slide it back in through the cylinder. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that these piston rods, they all look the same, but they are not interchangeable. The way these are made, the way these are machined is that when they're first made, they are broken off. So the way it goes back together, if you look really close, it has like a puzzle piece type of finish. So each rod is designed to go back together with a specific piece, and you do not want to get them mixed up. When you push in one side, slides right out. So this is the top and this is the bottom, and it appears that they look the same, so it's really not going to matter which side we put in on the top and which side we put in on the bottom. And just like the engine block, we are not going to put any sandpaper to this. We're not going to try to smooth it out. So we're going to do these heads one at a time. So when you set it back in, you see that the bearing is more narrow than the cap. So you just want to set it as center as possible. So we just work our way. You can start from the top, you can start from the bottom, doesn't matter. So here's the front of the piston head pointing to the front of the engine. So this is going to be the front piston ring. Number 1 ring, which is going to be the very top, is going to be pointing towards this direction. So on top of this head, it's going to be pointing about somewhere over here. So we just, right here's the gap. So we just turn it all the way until gap number 1. Until gap number 1 is sitting with about this line right here. This is a good reference point indicating where the diagram wants us to put the gap. So we just line it up best we can with that portion. And as you're doing the rest, it's going to move around. So when you're done, go back and double check, make sure everything's pointing in the right direction. So number 2 is actually already over here. So we got 1 and 2. And then right here it says the upper side rail, and this is the lower side rail. What I was taught in college is that the top ring is the upper oil ring, and this is the bottom lower oil ring, and this is a spacer. So on this diagram, you got the lower oil ring, the upper oil ring, And then right here where the number 2 ring gap is also going to be the spacer. So on the spacer, it's kind of hard to determine. If you spread it apart a little, you can see there's the spacer gap. And that's going to be pointing over here. This is the front. So it's going to be pointing over here with the ring number 2. So right here is a spacer gap. And it is lined up with your reference point. And then we just do the rest. Now the rings are set. They're all pointing in the right direction. When you put the ring compressor on here, you want to make the circle just enough to fit over the rings and the head. Because as you go to tighten this up, the compressor will move the rings out of place. Halfway onto the piston head, you want to leave some opening right here so you can slide it down to the cylinder. Also make note of which side is the piston head, because you want the front to be facing the front of the engine. So if the ring pops out, it won't just be this ring, it could be the second ring, could be the first ring. So it will happen, you're not going to get them all on the first try. And when you loosen this up, give it a turn and then push down on the release lever and let it slowly untwist. You don't want to pull the tool out because this thing will unwind rapidly. This process will test your patience, but you want to make sure you have the rings set as close as it can to according to the diagram. Tap it down all the way around to make sure it is sitting flush with the block. So when we're tapping the piston head in, the rings won't slip through the little gap like it did earlier. And then apply a little bit of force, push it, hold it down, and then start tapping in the piston head. If you lose your grip for whatever reason, just go back and tap the tool around, make sure it's flush. So there you can see the piston head is set inside the cylinder. So from here, we cannot determine whether the rings are in place or not. So you have to do the best you can when you're handling the compressor tool. You don't want it to spin around because it'll move those piston rings out of place. So handle this gently, tighten it up slowly. You don't want too big of a gap when you place it over the head, because it's going to take a while to turn this, and the more you have to turn this, the more likely the rings are going to fall out of place. So now we can put some lubrication on here, then continue tapping it until it reaches the crankshaft. Then we got the rod tapped all the way up. Now we're going to do the cap. Then we repeat step 1, 20 foot-pounds. 20 foot-pounds is pretty light. So when you turn it and you accidentally go a little too far, just loosen it back up and do it again. You want to stop right when you hear the click. So once you hear the click, that is set to the desired amount, and you do not want to go past that. And then rotate the crankshaft, make sure it's still turnable. So there you go, we got, it's getting a little tight, but it is not stuck anywhere. So we are actually doing pretty good. Then we move on to the next cylinder. So right now we are on cylinder number 3. I was just about to tighten up these bolts when I noticed this cap, the line was on this side, so the cap was on wrong. So make sure you double check your work. Don't rush it. Take your time. You want to make sure it goes back together right. And always, so every time you get done installing a piston head, make sure you turn it. You should be able to turn it with one hand. If it gets to the point where you have to put two hands just to turn it, that's an indication that something is wrong. You have to go back and double check. Because each time you turn it, it shouldn't have too much. It should have some resistance, but it shouldn't have a lot of resistance. So far, so good. Got 3 piston heads in. Those 2. Still got 1 more. When you are pounding the piston head into the block, you don't want to get impatient and start pounding it harder and harder. You need to be patient, slowly tap your way in, because you do not want to damage the piston rings. So here's number 6. It's going to be the last one. Here's the front. It does help to have a little pointed tool to set the rings. It's a good idea, I think, to set the spacer ring first. Then you just use your fingernail and hold the spring in place. Then you can get the upper oil ring. So remember, when you loosen it, do not let this go. If you loosen it, it's going to unravel really fast. So pull it a little to loosen the catch and turn it back by hand and then let it go. Do not let this go completely. Squeeze this a little. Try to make it a good circle. Now make it just oversized. You don't want to make it too wide, because when you're squeezing down on when you tighten up this spring compressor, it'll move the rings. So turn it and then loosen it just a bit. Set it over. If you take your thumb and you place it here, and what you're going to do is you're going to hold the compressor against the head. That way the rest of this just squeezes in, rather than the whole thing moving around. And I found out that helps keep the rings in place. So it's the first time using this tool. Oh, if you noticed right there, I spun it a little. Try to keep it where it was at, because it does turn the rings on the inside. Once you get used to working with this tool, when you first use the tool, you want to compress it and then loosen it up and take a look at the rings and see how far off they are. Just until you get used to using it and holding it in place, and then you can finally tighten it all the way up and set it in. Because if it's your first time using it, you're not going to get it perfectly right. It's going to be shifted. This portion, one side might be inside, the other side is going to be above. So you have to line it up just right. So play with it a little bit till you get used to it. Do not compress it the first time and set it in assuming it is right. You're not going to get it right the first time. So play around with it, get used to it. And when you have a good feel of how it works, and then you can go and set it in. Make the compressor flush with the engine. If one ring happens to pop out between the tool and the block and it's barely sticking out, you can go back to the tool and tap it down. In some cases, the tool, if you work the tool around, let's say the ring is on this side, sticking out a little, but it's not sticking out on this side. You can go and tap on the tool around this way, and the tool will slowly push the ring back inward, and you can continue. But if the ring has popped up all the way around, you're going to have to take it back off and start back over. So as you go down, visually check and see that no ring has popped out. Because if you keep tapping it and a ring pops out, you are going to break that ring. If the bearing falls out or you forget to put it in, you just have to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfectly center. As long as it's not all the way to the left or all the way to the right, just as center as possible is good enough. Don't forget to lube it up. So when the book asks for a 90 degree turn, 90 degrees is the right angle. So you can turn the wrench until it hits this point. Turn the crankshaft again. So like I said from the beginning, at the very end, there's more resistance than there was from the very beginning. But you can turn it with one hand. It should be good enough. If you have to get to two hands and really put your body into it, that's an indication that something is wrong. But you want to turn it every time you insert a piston head. That way you can tell that each head as you go is done correctly. Instead of checking it at the very end and they're all set, you don't know which one is bad and which one is not. So there's the piston heads. Got all 1, 3, and 5 on that side. 2, 4, and 6 on this side. Got a little bit of daylight left. See if we can get to the oil pan. So this is the oil sump. Clean it off with brake cleaner. So the way it works is this portion sits in the oil pan, and the oil gets sucked up, goes through here, and this end connects to your oil pump. So the oil pump sucks oil upwards, pushes it through the oil filter wherever it may sit, and then pumps the oil up to the top of the engine. And to let people know, this is my 4th can of brake cleaner. You're going to be using a lot of brake cleaner to clean your engine. Some people use more, some people use less. It just depends on how you want it. So just clean it up as good as you can. So next thing we'll be working on is the oil pump. Got a new ring. This ring is going to be for the oil sump. That part we just cleaned up. So we're going to set that aside. Now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to prime it. And the way it works is that this bigger hole, that gasket goes right here. The oil sump sits right in here with the bolt. And the oil is going to be getting pumped through here, coming out through here. And it's going to be going down to the oil filter, which sits right there. And your oil pump is going to be sitting on the crankshaft. So once you determine which way the direction the oil goes, we are going to take some oil, pour it into here, and we are going to turn this. And as we turn it, we are going to be looking for oil to come back out of here. That's how we know that this oil pump is primed. And there's no easy way to do this. It is going to get messy. And your oil pump will make sounds indicating that it is trying to suck oil from this end to this end. And we see down here, you can see it coming out a little. That's an indication that the oil has gone through the pump. The way the crankshaft turns is it turns clockwise. This is the front of it, so it goes in the direction of the clock. Now it's not going to necessarily hold oil because we're still setting it on. Gravity's going to pull that oil back out. But the point is getting oil all inside of here. That way this is properly lubricated. So when we start the engine, it won't cause any damage to it because it already has oil on the interior and it's ready to start pumping oil to the top. Then as you can see on here, there's like a line groove. The crankshaft is going to be the same. So you want to try to line it up and then set it on there. There you go. We go around a little bit. You also want to look to the book. Make sure there is no tightening sequence. If there is a tightening sequence, you're going to tighten it up according to the book. If there is none, and then the book usually just says to use a crisscross pattern, which means you'll start on one side, jump to the other side, and then crisscross it all the way around. You also might have to turn the crankshaft. That way the bolts on the oil pump can line up with the bolt holes. Go over here to the book, and right here, oil pump mounting bolts, and those are going to be 21 foot-pounds. Make sure you follow the dotted line. Go over to the right one. You don't want to get it mixed up and tighten it to the wrong tightness, because if you tighten it too tight, it will crack or break. If you tighten it too loose, it will come loose. Be careful not to go past the click. Double check. Next thing we're going to set on is your oil sump. So this ring is going to be trash. The ring that came with your oil pump is going to replace this old ring on the sump. Set it on there and put it right here on the little O-ring. That way when it goes to set, you want to oil the ring. So when it goes onto the oil pump, it slides right in. Doesn't tear it, doesn't fall out of place. And then there are the two bolts over here. So before we set on the oil sump, we're going to pull out the oil pan gasket. Now not all vehicles are the same. This oil pan has some extra added seal. Most oil pans on other vehicles I've worked for is just the black portion all the way around. So in this case, this is going to go on before the oil sump. Here to the book, and right there, some books will call it oil sump. This book calls it oil pickup tube. They're pretty much the same thing. But anyway, the mounting bolts all the way across is the same torque as the oil pump. It's going to be 21 foot-pounds. Clean up the oil pan. Get the razor blade again. Go around all the edges of the oil pan. Make sure there's no old gasket on there. That's all the material that's being scraped off. That's just material from the old oil pan gasket. So now we got the oil pan as clean as we can get it. Simply flip it around and set it down. So once you have the holes lined up, you can tighten it back up. So the oil pan bolts are usually pretty dirty. If you have to, get an old toothbrush or a new one and simply clean off the dirt. With all the bolts, pan bolts placed in by hand to make sure they're threaded in, we're going to use a drill to help seat it. Not tighten it, just seat it. All the oil pan bolts seated, not tightened, because we had to tighten them down to 130 inch-pounds. So when that's all done, you want to go around one more time. Make sure it is all tightened down. So there's your oil pan, piston heads, oil pump, and again, sun is going down, losing daylight. It does take time, but if you have the patience and the time, the effort, you can put your own engine, you can pull your engine apart, put it back together, and it is the next best thing to a brand new engine. Tomorrow we will work on putting the cylinder heads back on. After we do that, then we'll move down here to the timing, put the entire timing back on, and hopefully get to the timing cover. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.